Okay, in this video, we're gonna walk through how to use PowerShell in order to manipulate and administer our Windows Azure. It is necessary to be reminded that Microsoft under portal.azure.com have a very powerful graphical user interface that could be used in order to administer any instances of Windows Azure in a very effective way. However, as an administrator, we always love how the PowerShell is, and command line interface is something that is being very well recognized and implemented amongst the administrators. Good news is Microsoft has given us this opportunity to use the PowerShell in order to manage any instances of the Azure. The thing to know is if you're getting ready for taking the certification exam AZ100 for Microsoft Azure Administrator certification, then you will definitely face some questions that are pertaining to the PowerShell. And also in our class, we're going to have some questions and quizzes about the PowerShell commands. So even though that I will be using Microsoft Portal mostly for administering the Azure and demonstrating different capabilities of the Azure, we still need to have a good knowledge and practice on this part, which is the PowerShell 2. For the sake of this demonstration, I am actually using a Mac OS operating system, having VMware Fusion installed on that, running a Windows 10 64 bits virtual machine, and using the PowerShell from there. To pull up the PowerShell, simply go in and put in PowerShell. It's going to pop up as the first and best choice. Make sure you are administrator when you are running the PowerShell. This username over here, which has my name and last name on it, is basically the administrator, but to be sure, what we can do is come back here and right click on the PowerShell and then choose run as administrator option. Make sure you are the admin when you are doing this practice, or your commands and everything is not going to be acceptable and run properly. The first thing is Microsoft needs at least version 1.000 of the PowerShell Get in order to use the PowerShell as an Azure tool. Let's see if we have it available here. Let me just go ahead and check it. Okay, so we go to get module PowerShell Get, and please make sure you are not misspelling these commands, as they're not going to be running properly as you want them. So select the object, and I want it to be sorted by name, version, and maybe even the path, so that we see where we have it. Okay, so good news is we have the PowerShell Get version 1.001, and it's located under our program files, Windows PowerShell modules, PowerShell Get, the version, and the PSD1 file, which has all the commands we need within it. So far, so good. So if you don't see this, you just need to update your Microsoft operating system or just manually install the PowerShell Get under. Next step is to verify if we have the Azure, and in order to do that, we go ahead and check for Azure. And as you can see, we don't have the Azure installed on the system, which means now we have to get Microsoft Azure and install it on the system. So at this point, I have to install Azure, and I think I had another version of Azure, older version of Azure installed on this PowerShell, and it's usually tricky when you have an older version and you want to install the new version of Azure. they sometimes get into the conflict. So the command basically is going to be install dash module and then Azure, and that's going to suffice if you have never installed Azure on your PowerShell before. However, if you are skeptical, or like me, you already know that you had a version before, you want to use an attribute called allow clubber, which basically is like an enforcement and gets everything overwritten when they already exist, and the possible sys files are going to be deleted and the new ones are going to be there. So let's click this, and it takes a little bit time, and I'm not going to pause the video because I want you guys to be able to see what happens. And as you see, it's telling me that the nugget provider is required to continue. Okay, so I could have installed it from the get-go, from the beginning, to not to get to this message, but usually it doesn't matter if you install it before or after. But anyway, at this point, I'm gonna let it install uh, the nugget provider for me. As you can see, nugget provider got downloaded. It's gonna install it and come back to me as soon as it's over. So as you can see, we have an untrusted repository, which is telling me that there is the possibility of this repository that I'm going to install to be malicious. Still, I want to go on and install this. It sometimes takes even longer when you have a virtual machine. So when you're running it on your side, this is what you have to see. It's unzipping now. And I'm gonna pause the video and restart it when everything is done. And now it is installed. But remember, just because it is installed, it doesn't mean that it's available and I can use it. Let us try our get module Azure once more. And as you see, it's going to show the module is not there. Don't panic. At this point, you have the module installed. It's in your computer. The only thing that you need to do is you need to go ahead and import this module to prepare it for your usage. So in order to do so, we're going to go with import module Azure. So as you see, I just made a mistake and put it in the right command. I missed a P here, and I got a syntax error. Basically, this error is all about syntax. But then here, something that I want to attract your attention to is that it is telling me that the command that I gave in cannot be loaded because running a script is disabled on the system. What does it mean? Basically, running scripts is disabled by default for the security purposes on any version of the PowerShell. The other problem that may be there is the fact that you're not running this PowerShell as administrator. As you can see, in my case, I am running it as an administrator. So the solution is going to be to go ahead and basically check that and bring it back to assign. So the command you're going to use is set execution policy to remove signed, and then it's going to ask you if you want this to run. So I'll say yes, and now I'm back with that execution right actually assigned. So let's go ahead and do an import module once again. And this time, as you can see, the module is being imported, and that's it. So now we have the Azure module imported and ready to go. So to test what we just did, we're going to run get module Azure once again. And as you can see, now we have the script version 5.3.0 of the Azure running on the system. So let's review what we did and make sure there is a good understanding of everything. So first and foremost, you need to be the administrator when you are running this in the PowerShell. The first command you run is get module PowerShell to make sure you have the latest PowerShell Get module installed on your computer, which in this case is 1.0.0.1. And then go from there, get module Azure. We didn't have the module Azure, that's why we didn't get no message after this command. Therefore, we go ahead and install module Azure, and we use this attribute in order to force overwrite in case that there is an older version of Azure installed on this system. And it's asking me, am I really going to do this? Of course, yes. And then it's asking me if I want to install this, even though it's from an unregistered repository, which I answered yes again. I tried to get module Azure again, which didn't let it come up because, as I explained, it was just installed and not imported yet. I did the import module, ignored this one, which is a syntax error. So this one over here is just a syntax error. As you can see, a P is missing. So for the second part, when I ran the command import module Azure, it was telling me that the run script is disabled on this computer. As I explained, for the security purposes, Microsoft does disable it by default. Therefore, I came down here, ran the set execution policy to remote sign so that I can run any type of a script that I want on this computer. And it asked me if I'm sure. I answered yes. And then I did the import Azure, and as you can see, this command, which was not allowed to run here, ran here. And then to check, I went through get module Azure, and it's telling me my Azure module is actually right there and ready to go. Good news is in this step-by-step guide, we faced a couple of simple and possible issues that you may face when you are doing it on your own computer. So most possibly you should be able to go through the steps as smoothly as possible. At this point, remember, before you be able to do anything on the Azure, you need to be logged into your account. So far we set up the Azure module on this virtual machine so that we can manipulate and administer our Microsoft Azure instance. But before being logged into the account, there are only a few commands that we can run from here without actually logging into the account. So to log into your Azure account, you simply go and run login-azure, and then remember RM sits for remote, and then account, which as soon as I execute this, you're going to see this pop-up comes up asking me to log into my Microsoft Azure instance. And so I canceled it, and as you can see, it's reminding me that I canceled the authentication. And from there, when I log into my instance of Azure, I can go on and run other commands on the PowerShell over here, which will be described in the other videos. Of course, when you're dealing with an automated account, you're going to want to pass the credentials, and you can create a credential object, or you can use what is called a service principal, which allows you to pass the credentials in a script and in a limited permissions account. And in any case, at this point, setting up the PowerShell is done, and this video is over. Good luck with setting up your own PowerShell. Make sure that you go through the steps. If you have any questions or concerns, please make sure to contact me so that I can help you and guide you through whatever can make you successful in this process.